Hey, Wendy-O. I got a call from the police chief just a few minutes ago, letting me know that all my public records were ready to go, ready for me to pick up. Total amount for the records request is $186.62. $186.62. Hey, Boomer. So I am on my way to the police department right now to pick up those records. I'm not sure if that includes all of them, because there's still a lot more that I requested. I've done 6 open records requests thus far. 186, yes. So if anybody would like to help contribute, I'd appreciate it. I got that PayPal link on my page thing. Yeah, I know. Now there is a part in there. I want to see this receipt and what the actual charges are for, because they're not allowed to. The Oklahoma Open Records Act prohibits the charging of a search fee when the records or release of documents is in the public's interest, including but not limited to release to the news media, scholars, authors, and taxpayers seeking to determine whether those entrusted with the affairs of the government are honestly and fairly. And completely performing their duties as public servants. So I want to see if they're charging me for their time. They can't legally do that under the Hey, News Now Cleveland. So before I pay the ransom, I am going to I want to see their invoice for what the charges are for. We get to go through all of that and just see how much they're redacting, how much of the video they've edited. I can't wait to see what they're doing. They say transparency is key. Well, let's see how transparent they're being. And I am going to be sending everything over to the chief and Chief Jones and to Black Label, including all videos, all documents, everything. Let everybody be a part of this, since everybody's concerned about what's going on. So, and I'm going to request that when we go to court, that we're allowed to video the court proceeding, because there's no jury involved at this point. So I need to run in here real quick, guys, and grab some money, and I'll be right out. So hold on. Okay, guys, I got the ransom. Here's all the ransom money for the records. Gotta have 62 cents exactly. If I had it in pennies, I'd give it to them all in pennies. It's 22, 32, 42, 52, 62. You got the 62. here. I was in the Army. I did 8 years in the Army. And I was part of the Clinton cutbacks. Oops, dropped a dime. They phased my job out during Desert Shield. It's when Clinton reduced the Army to like 35%. Alright, here we go. Oops, I need the rest of that money. And my wallet. How you doing?
Fantastic. How about you, my friend?
Good.
Everything you asked for at this point is $186.62.
There's the 62.
Okay.
20, 40, 60, 81.
Hang on just a second. I'm gonna have to count it again. So
Okay.
just save ourselves some time here. This is the 20, 40, 60, 81, 20, 40, 60, 82, 182, 186.62.
Oh.
$4 more.
So let's just do that. Oops.
20, 40, 60, 80, 1, 6. There's your dollar back.
Perfect.
So you got 186.62. Here is. Give you the original receipts here. There's one.
That'll work.
And there is two. Oh, I think I gave you more than one. Let me get
Oh,
that yellow
yep.
back.
There's the yellow back.
There's that one.
Yes, sir.
And here is the information you requested, sir.
Thank you very much.
You are very welcome. Right, the most recent FOIA request, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That we don't have that one ready yet. So
10-4.
it'll be a little bit. We'll holler at you.
10-4. Perfect. All right. You guys have a great day. Yeah, this isn't all my FOIA requests. They still have 2 more they haven't filled, but they're working on them. And then, I got 2 DVDs here. The radio traffic and the dash cam. And then all the records. And there's probably about 30 pages. Oops, sorry. And they did not charge me for the time. And the chief was waiting at the window for me. So apparently they were watching me live feed come into the door. Okay, we got radio. Adult only. So they've redacted everything regarding Lindsay out of the video, the arrest video. That's what it's looking like. She's in the whole video. That ought to be real interesting. Okay. We got that. IDs. Don't know what that's supposed to be of. Well, that's not illegal. I don't know. Holy crap. That's a photo they gave me. What is that supposed to be of? Well, if this is the evidence they're taking with them. We already got that. There it is. One. They got me noted in there in the police report, the full police report. Incident narrative. For education and training. So this is Officer Meadows. He's been with the Yukon, Ada Police, Yukon Police, Oklahoma Police, Shawnee, Little Rock, Arkansas. Scenario-based training. I'm gonna find his radar training certificate. So the last test on this, on the radar, was 2/27/2018. That's the last date it was certified. Wow, that's something. Alrighty. So if anybody'd like to help out, click on that PayPal thing. I'm not sure how that all works. I got another spider in my truck. Found a big one yesterday in my truck. I was like, holy crap. So who all's curious about the video? Oh, I am. I have all three reports from all three officers. One of the officers said that I did continue filming the rest of the stop, but I did back up and complied with their commands. I did see that. What's up? Peace. Well, here we go. I didn't get a canine certificate though. That should be public record. So I wonder why I didn't receive that. For the canine itself and the canine officer. Why they're holding out. I wonder if these even got a training certificate now. Because that should have been something that was made for the ready, especially when requested. So we shall find out. I will be sending an email as soon as I get back to the house about that. Almost home. I don't live very far, so I'll dig further into this. I don't know how to start a GoFundMe. I'm going to have to look that up on how to do that. Is it hard to start a GoFundMe? And what's the requirements? Anybody? Cool. In case everybody didn't know, I did just do a FOIA request or Oklahoma Open Records request for the drug raid that was conducted at the house they were actually seen leaving. And I want the most important part of that video to me is showing where they actually started tailing her at, because they're saying they didn't start tailing her until Mustang Road in Highway 152, and that's not true at all. They started 2.5 miles back at the very beginning of town. So I'm real curious to see what's on that. Because that should be on it, and all the dispatch, the communications between dispatch, all that's on it. And we are home. Ooch. Poor guy. Let's see why those people do that like that. I'm going to read the police report to everybody too, so stay tuned. Give me just a few minutes. Because it even has me in there. All right, we are home. Here we go. Oh my God, they did do research time. I gotta call them. I got research time receipt right here. So, they owe me $152. I'll be calling the police chief here in just a few minutes. So, Chief, I know you're watching. It clearly states that you guys can't charge me for that time. So, I'll be coming back down there for a refund. Make sure you have exact change.
So one of the police reports says
I just got it.
Read it.
Hold on.
I know you were sitting in the car reading it.
Get down.
Bash, stop. Stop. Bash.
This naive.
Sit.
I fight people every day.
Oh,
Bash.
maybe, but not when you're emotional.
Bash.
What are you saying? You can't buy law? It's a cliche.
There's 3 different reports, Lindsay.
Have you read any of them?
No, have not read any of them yet. There's the 2 discs. Training certificates for the radar. So this report is by Officer Chastain, Chastain, badge number 359. So on Monday, July 16th, 2018, about 0200 hours, I was asked by Sergeant Meadows to come to a vehicle stop at 540 East South Highway 152 in the Freddy's parking lot. Upon arrival, I observed Sergeant Meadows speaking to a female later identified as Haley, however you say her last name, between his patrol vehicle and her blue Chevy Cruze. Sergeant Meadows requested that I speak to Haley so that he could conduct an open air sniff on the vehicle. I asked Haley if she had identification with her, and she stated she had an identification in her Michael Kors purse, which was located in the vehicle. I asked where the purse was, and she stated that it was in the passenger seat prior to her friend getting into the vehicle. Sergeant Burnett asked Grants to exit the front passenger seat, and also asked the third occupant, later identified as Nathaniel Ryan Jones, to exit the vehicle. Grants appeared to be on her phone making a call, and Jones was using his phone to record the interaction. Jones yelled at Grants to call them and get them down here, which was concerning as there were 3 officers and 3 people involved in the situation. And if
Pause or something.
no, I can't. What's that?
Can we have your tablet to take with us?
I don't care.
What's that?
My book.
I'm sure it's not the books I ordered.
No, it's my book. It's Kenneth Grant's.
Is it? It's charged?
Yeah, 100%.
Alright.
All right, love you. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, Sergeant Burnett asked Jones what his name was, to which Jones replied that he did not have to provide that information, as Jones held his cell phone in Sergeant Burnett's face, which is not true. You can clearly see it on the video. Sergeant Jones asked Jones to have a seat on the curb and explained that he could continue to record He can continue to record. No, he grabbed his phone out of his hands and threw it. So there's lie number 1. Oh, the investigation continued. Jones briefly sat down, and he didn't just sit down. They handcuffed him and forced him down. And then see, Sergeant Burnett, Jones briefly sat down and then disregarded Sergeant Burnett's instructions and stood up and began to speak in a loud voice, which is clearly not true. Loud voice at Sergeant Burnett and Sergeant Meadows. I approached Jones, and as Sergeant Burnett again instructed him to sit down, and Jones complied. Considering that there were 3 people involved in the situation and possibly more on the way, and that Jones was apparently agitated, I opted to place him in handcuffs and try to de-escalate the situation for the safety of myself and my fellow officers. Jones's phone was laid on the ground less than a foot away from him by Sergeant Burnett. Sergeant Burnett asked to sit on the curb. It must be my daughter. Asked, because it's blacked out, to sit on the curb, and she complied while still on the phone speaking to someone. Sergeant Burnett secured a dog out of the stopped vehicle and placed it into my patrol vehicle for safekeeping. I resumed speaking to Haley. I don't know how to say her last name. Sergeant Meadows advised me that his canine, Toby, had positively alerted for the smell of narcotics emanating from the vehicle. Sergeant Meadows stood Jones up and patted him down and found an L-shaped metal pipe that had a bowl affixed to one end at the base. At one end, that based on my training and experience, I knew to be commonly used as to consume marijuana. Sergeant Meadows advised Jones he was under arrest and asked for his name. Jones stated that he did not have to give his name to Sergeant Meadows. Meadows then placed Jones into his patrol vehicle. The pipe was on Nathan Jones' person laid near Jones' phone for the remainder of the stop until it was collected as evidence by Sergeant Meadows. I retrieved the Michael Kors purse that was located in the driver's seat so that I could positively identify Haley. When I opened the purse, I immediately observed a small plastic baggie that contained a green leafy substance, and I knew it to be marijuana based on my training and experience. In the purse, I also found a Oklahoma driver's license issued to Haley, whatever her last name is. I placed what's her name in handcuffs. No, that's incorrect. Haley wasn't in handcuffs when I got there, and checked them for tightness and fit and double lock them to prevent undue pain or injury to Haley. I spoke with Jones in Sergeant Meadows' vehicle and read his Miranda. No, that's incorrect. That's a freaking lie. I asked Jones what his name was, and he stated to me that he already had it, and then claimed that he was and that Nathan claimed that he was a member of the Irish mob criminal gang. Whatever. Oh my God. I asked Jones, what is the Irish mob anyway? Oh man, this is good. I asked Jones what his name was, and he stated that we already had it, but followed up by stating his name was Nathaniel Jones, with a date of birth 9/7/1994. I asked Jones if he had any tattoos that would confirm his membership in a gang. Jones showed me tattoos on his hands that said mob life, but did not have any significant tattoos or remarks that could confirm his membership in or affiliation to the Irish mob criminal gang. Whatever. Jones remained verbally aggressive and non-compliant throughout the remainder of the encounter. A black truck arrived, that's me, at the scene shortly and a white male, later identified as Kenneth Grant, exited. Kenneth continued to film our activity from a safe distance and without interfering in the stop. I transferred custody of the dog to Kenneth prior to him leaving the scene. Wow. The Irish mob, huh? Oh, wow. So anyway, okay. Let's go to the next report. This is by Sergeant Burnett. On 7/16, approximately 1:55 hours, I and Officer Christian Castaigne arrived at the parking lot of Freddy's restaurant located at yada 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 stop location. He called for assistance. Sergeant Meadows had stopped a blue Chevy Cruze bearing Oklahoma license plate after observing the vehicles speeding excessively on Highway 152. During the stop, Sergeant Meadows asked the driver of the vehicle, later identified as Haley, to exit the vehicle. Upon arrival to the scene, Haley was out of the vehicle, standing at the rear between her vehicle and Sergeant Meadows' patrol vehicle. Two other subjects, later identified as Nathaniel Jones and of course my daughter, but is blacked out, were still seated in the vehicle. Nathan was seated in the right rear passenger seat of the vehicle, and then my daughter was seated in the front passenger seat of the vehicle. During the course of Sergeant Meadows' stop, he utilized his canine partner, Toby, to conduct an open-air sniff of the vehicle. In preparation of this, Lindsay and Nathan were instructed to exit the vehicle based on Sergeant Meadows' intent to use the canine. Nathaniel was immediately non-compliant with my instructions and had to be instructed several times before he complied to exit the vehicle on his own. No, he didn't exit on his own. He was pulled out of the vehicle. He had not identified himself as requested earlier by Sergeant Meadows to any officers present. Nathaniel was instructed to sit on the nearby curb to the right and slightly behind the vehicle, and was using a phone to record the encounter at the time. Nathaniel was still defiant with officers, and at one point appeared to get back up off the curb despite being told to sit. At that point, while Nathaniel was still holding the phone, I removed the phone from his hand, and while Officer Chastain applied handcuffs to Nathaniel for officer safety due to his non-compliance and attitude towards police at the time. Once Nathaniel was secured and seated, the phone that was in his possession at the time was placed behind him in the grass, and the other officer just said it was placed next to him on the curb. Lindsay, it's blacked out though, was compliant with my instructions to exit the vehicle and did so without incident while on her phone. She had a dog with her in the vehicle at the time. Her dog was temporarily secured in Officer Chastain's patrol vehicle, while Canine Toby walked around the vehicle as a safety precaution. Lindsay followed instructions to remain seated at the time on the curb. Sergeant Meadows had run Canine Toby around the vehicle and later indicated that Toby had positively alerted on the vehicle at the time. Sergeant Meadows then approached Nathaniel to conduct a pat-down search of his person. Sergeant Meadows then conducted a pat search of Nathaniel's person and found a small pipe with marijuana residue in it. And he didn't do a pat search, he actually did a full-blown search. This was placed in the grass near where Nathaniel's phone was laying at the time. Sergeant Meadows then advised Nathan that he was under arrest at that time. Sergeant Meadows then escorted Nathan back to his patrol vehicle. During that time, Nathaniel was still non-compliant with Sergeant Meadows' request to identify, despite the fact he was advised he was under arrest at that time. Both I and Sergeant Meadows then instructed Nathan to provide identifying information and reiterated to him that he was under arrest. Nathaniel was non-compliant in providing any information regarding his identity at that time. Sergeant Meadows subsequently arrested Lindsay and Haley as well. Father Kenneth Grants arrived on scene and was spoken to by Sergeant Meadows and myself. He was later directed to the other side of the street as he wished to record the encounter at the time. During the time, I retrieved Lindsay's dog from Chasten's patrol vehicle and gave the dog to Kenneth, placing the dog on the front seat of the vehicle. Kenneth later left and went to Mustang Police Department. As Nathaniel had still not identified himself to officers, I later went back to and asked her how she knew Nathaniel. She stated Nathan was her brother and provided his name and partial date of birth. Oh, she doesn't know what year he was born. The information matched Oklahoma driver's license entry that they had matching on his matching address on it. This information was relayed to dispatch, who later found the entry. Sergeant Meadows later transported Lindsay to the Mustang Police Department for booking for her charges. Officer Chastain conducted an impound of Haley's vehicle and later turned the vehicle over to Lane's record. A copy of the impound form has been placed in the case file. Officer Chastain then transported Nathan and Haley to the Mustang Police Department for booking on their related charges. The incident remains clear by arrest and referred to the City of Mustang's Attorney Office. No further information available at this time. So there's lies in that one also. Here's Sergeant Meadows. Sergeant Meadows on Monday, July 16th, yada yada yada, while assisting another officer, on a traffic stop, I obtained information about a subject who was possibly distributing marijuana out of a residence located right there. It tells the initial stop was clearly not referring to the speed. He just stated it right there. Unreal. Yeah, sorry guys. I'm reading the police. This is the information I wanted to know, because the initial stop was, they're saying was for speeding, and he's contradicting himself right here. I obtained information about the subject who was possibly distributing marijuana out of a residence located in the area west of Clear Springs Road on West Highway 152. The subject provided details of the location and the vehicle description of the vehicle parked in the front driveway of the residence. I drove by the residence matching the given description and then continued westbound, passing the house. I then observed in my rear view mirror a small sedan that was traveling westbound turn into the driveway of the residence. I turned around and drove back to the residence and observed the vehicle that just pulled into the driveway to be a blue in color Chevy Cruze. I pulled into the parking lot of an abandoned gas station. He pulled into the 7-Eleven located at 1600 block of State Highway 152 and watched the vehicle. Due to my distance from the vehicle and my vantage point, I wasn't even able to see anyone exit or get into the vehicle from the residence. The vehicle remained in the driveway of the residence for several minutes with the lights on, and then backed out and drove back eastbound on South Highway 152. When I pulled out behind the vehicle and caught up to it in the 300 block of South Highway 152, as I was attempting to catch up to the vehicle, I observed it to be traveling above the posted speed limit of 40 miles per hour. That is incorrect. From where he started following her all the way into where the fire station is, which is almost a mile and a half, the speed limit is 45 miles per hour. Okay, so he was well behind them prior to that 40 mile an hour speed limit zone. I estimated the vehicle speed at 50, which is incorrect, because everybody in the vehicle specifically told her not to speed because they saw the police officer. See, traveling 50, and then activated my radar unit and confirmed the vehicle speed at 48 miles per hour in the marked 40 mile an hour zone. That is incorrect. My radar unit emanated a clear and consistent tone that matched the visually indicated speed of 48 miles per hour, and there were no other vehicles on the roadway within several hundred yards. I continued to follow the vehicle. I could now see was bearing Oklahoma license plate, yada yada yada, and it continued on highway. It continued about 48 miles an hour through the intersection of South Highway 152 and Mustang Road. I then initiated a traffic stop. So you're saying he initiated the traffic stop at Mustang Road and South Highway 152, and it's almost a mile from that point to Freddy's. So that's incorrect. Activating my emergency lights, and the vehicle turned right into the parking lot of Freddy's Frozen Custard, located at 540 East South Highway 152, and came to a stop. I approached the vehicle on the driver's side and contacted the driver, later identified as Haley. I asked Haley where she was driving from, and she said she was coming from her house. I asked Haley where she lived, and she said she lived in the Chisholm Trail Edition. I then advised Haley that I observed her coming from somewhere other than Chisholm Trail, and then asked her again where she was driving from, and she again said she was driving from her house in Chisholm Trail. Speaking with Haley, I observed her hands and carotid artery to be shaking. Wow. See, her face was covered in perspiration. She hesitated before answering, and she would not look at me when she spoke. All of these observations led me to believe she was nervous and being deceptive. I asked Haley to step out of the vehicle to speak with me, and she complied. I explained to Haley that I observed her drive past the Chisholm Trail Edition, and again asked her where she was coming from, and she then stated she'd dropped someone off at the house by a 7-Eleven that she only knew as Wiley. I asked Haley if she had any weapons or illegal narcotics, in the vehicle, and she said, not that I know of. I then walked back to the vehicle and contacted the front seat passenger, later identified as my daughter, a juvenile age female subject, and the back seat passenger, later identified as Nathaniel Ryan Jones. I asked Lindsay, of course, and Nathaniel where they were driving from, and they said they were coming from Haley's house. Standing at the passenger side of the vehicle, it was apparent a odor that, due to my training and experience, I recognized as the distinct odor of raw marijuana, and was emanating from the interior passenger compartment of the vehicle. I then asked Lindsay and Nathan if they had identification. Both stated that they did not, which is incorrect. I then asked both Nathaniel for their information, and Nathaniel said he did not have to give me his name. Seconds later, Officer Barrett Chastain arrived on scene and began speaking with and attempting to identify the driver, Haley. I advised officers on scene that I would be conducting an open-air sniff of the vehicle, and asked them to have Nathaniel and Lindsay exit the vehicle for both their safety and the safety of my canine partner. As officers were asking Nathaniel and Lindsay to exit the vehicle, I observed him to be filming with his phone. Nathaniel stepped out of the vehicle under protest and was then directed by another officer to sit on the curb away from the vehicle. I deployed my narcotics detector Canine Police Service Canine Toby, license number K917-3161. Canine Toby is trained to detect the odor of marijuana, heroin, cocaine, methamphetamines. Upon location on one of these 4 controlled dangerous substances, CDS, Canine Toby will alert through numerous behavioral changes. I gave Canine Toby the command to sniff for the odor of CDS as we approached the vehicle, which was parked in the street from the front bumper. Canine Toby worked his way down the driver's side of the vehicle and around to the rear bumper. Canine Toby continued to the passenger side of the vehicle, and at the rear passenger's door, Canine Toby began sniffing the door seams and odor handle intently. The door seam and door handle intently. While doing this, the sniff pattern increased. His tail began swinging rapidly and his body posture stiffened. Canine Toby then jumped up on the side of the door and, without being directed, briefly attempted to jump through the open window of the rear passenger side of the door before giving a positive final response by scratching and staring at the door. As I was conducting the canine sniff, Nathaniel stood up from the curb after being asked to remain seated. At this time, I returned Canine Toby to my scout car, and I then immediately conducted a pat down of Nathaniel's pockets. In Nathaniel's right front pocket, I felt what I immediately knew to be a one-hitter style pipe. I removed the pipe from Nathaniel's pocket and observed it to be a one-hitter style pipe with burnt residue that emanated the distinct odor of burnt marijuana. I secured Nathan in the seat of double locked handcuffs. In a seat of double locked handcuffs, advised him he was under arrest, and then asked him for his name. Nathan again stated, "I do not have to tell you." I then secured Nathaniel in the back seat area of the scout car. I then conducted a probable cause search of the vehicle and located in the front passenger side of the floorboard a package of cigars with a small amount of green leafy substance and knew both by its appearance and distinct odor to be marijuana. I continued the search and located the front passenger side floorboard where Lindsay had been sitting, a teal in color backpack. I opened the backpack and found a metal marijuana grinder with a small amount of what I knew to be marijuana, a digital scale, and several packages of cigars that through my experience I know are commonly used to hollow out to pack with marijuana. Also located inside the backpack was a woman-style wallet with Lindsay's state ID, several other cards in her name, and a check stub issued in her name. Finally located in the back seat behind the driver, Officer Chastain found a woman-style wallet containing a small baggie with a small amount of green leafy substance that knew to be marijuana due to the distinct odor and appearance. Also located in the wallet was Haley's state ID, another card issued in her name. I seized the items and then advised both Haley and Lindsay they were under arrest. As I was advising she was under arrest, I observed her to also be filming with her phone, and at this time I took her phone and placed it on the hood of my scout car so I could secure her in a seat and double lock the handcuff. See, at this time, a pickup occupied by a male subject, later identified as Kenneth Bruce Graham, pulled in front of the Chevy Cruze and parked. Kenneth then pulled out a small object and held it up to the windshield. Small object. I approached the vehicle and could then be observed Kenneth was filming using his phone. I asked Kenneth who he was, and he said he did not have to tell me. I then asked Kenneth what business he had with my traffic stop, and he said I had his kids. I then asked Kenneth if he was the father of the juvenile female, and he said he was. I observed Kenneth. I advised Kenneth that in order for us to release the juvenile, I first had to positively identify the adult she was going to be released to. Kenneth then said, "I'm telling you I'm her father." I then explained to Kenneth that I could not just take his word for it, and I needed him to provide identification. Kenneth then finally provided me with his Oklahoma driver's license confirming his identity, and I had dispatch conduct a license check. Seconds later, I returned Kenneth's ID to him and then advised him he was free to film, but he needed to move across the street so he was not interfering with my traffic stop. Kenneth left the area and the vehicle and a vehicle inventory was completed prior to releasing the vehicle to Lane's Towing for impound. I then transported juvenile Lindsay to the Mustang Police Juvenile Holding Facility, while Officer Chastain transported both Haley and Nathaniel to the Mustang Municipal Jail. Upon arrival, Lindsay was booked and cited for possession of marijuana and possession of drug paraphernalia. I then completed a juvenile release form, and Lindsay was released to her father Kenneth's custody. I explained the citation to Kenneth and then asked Lindsay if I interrogated her at any time. Kenneth and then asked, relayed that interrogated her at any time. Lindsay relayed that I did not interrogate her, and Kenneth then asked if she was in possession of marijuana. I asked that freaking at the stop, not at the police department. That she did not have any marijuana on her person, and Kenneth then asked where the marijuana was located. Lindsay said the marijuana was found in the front seat of the car, and Kenneth asked her where she was sitting in the vehicle, and she said in the front seat. I then advised Kenneth the marijuana was found in the backpack, and she was now wearing, and also held her driver's license and wallet. Kenneth then walked Lindsay outside to the vehicle and left the police department. When I walked to the Mustang Municipal Jail and assisted officers in booking Haley and Nathaniel, Haley was booked and cited for possession of marijuana and excessive speed. Nathaniel was booked and cited for possession of drug paraphernalia and obstruct officer. I then produced the evidence in the case listed above. The green leafy substance was tested using a presumptive field test kit and tested positive for the presence of THC. The substance weighed at about 6.5 grams. The evidence was then photographed, packaged, and stored in the evidence locker. This case will be carried as closed to file due to adult arrest. This case will be carried, CARRIED, carried as closed to file due to adult arrest. That doesn't make sense to me. See Officer Chastain's narrative for further information. Narrative prepared by Sergeant Meadows. And then everybody's already heard that one. That's the little 8-sentence. So there you have it in a nutshell. Lots of lies in there. I can't wait to see the video. I'm going to scan all this information in, get it to the chief. Hey, Chief Jones, are you on here? I can now pay attention to the chat. Because, Chief, you said you had sent me an email, but I did not receive an email. I'll get it to... Does anybody have Chief's email address? Because I never received it. Hey, SC. I'm getting information, man. Getting information, finally. And then I just found out that they charged me for all that. So I do need to call and get this disputed. Because they're under... And I'm going to look it up and get the specific... the Oklahoma Open Records Act prohibits the charging of a search fee when the release of documents is in public interest, including but not limited to the release to the news media, scholars, authors, and taxpayers seeking to determine whether those entrusted with the affairs of the government are honestly, faithfully, and completely performing their duties as public servants. I am asking this request as Yep. Grant reasonable access to the records. Required to locate and compile the records. So, all right, guys, there you have it. I'm gonna get this stuff over to Black Label and my attorney. I'm gonna do that right now. I'm gonna call my attorney and let him know what's coming over. So we'll talk to you guys later. Thanks.